Hey folks, David Stewart here. I've said before that boycotts often don't work and usually don't work. And the reason for that is that people are not likely to give up their comforts or their pleasures and take a sacrifice unless somebody is looking over their shoulder to make sure that they do it with some other consequence to them, like a social consequence, because there's a lot of benefit to you as an individual for breaking a boycott, and then if there's no consequence for breaking the boycott, chances are most people are going to break the boycott. And I think that's really true for things where people are able to anonymously consume them. Like there's been a lot of talk with the Star Trek community over boycotting Viacom or boycotting CBS, boycotting these companies that are in suing Axonar and suing fan productions and coming out with these draconian rules for how you can make fan films. So they're like, let's boycott them. And I usually don't think that's successful because there's no one socially enforcing it. There's no Star Trek fan community like person who's standing at the store saying, don't buy that Star Trek DVD. There's no one doing that like there would be if there was a small community that said, we're going to boycott this store because of whatever reason. There might be someone standing there that's like, Berta, don't you dare go into that store because they donate to this thing that we don't like in our community. When there's social enforcement, I think boycotts can be very successful. However, when there's none of that enforcement and they have that like benefit to the individual, I don't think it works. So I wasn't so sure that this Star Trek thing would work. But there's been a great alternative to boycotting Star Trek, which is don't buy things that you don't want, right? Don't be a fanboy. I've said that before. So don't go to movies that you don't want to see. If you are not appreciative of the newer crop of Star Trek movies, don't go see the new one that's just come out. Just don't go see it. That's not really boycotting to me. That's just being a really good consumer and looking out for your own wallet. But that does and can, and I think has had an impact on Viacom and on Paramount, and I want to talk about that a little bit. Apparently, the Q2 snapshot of Viacom and Paramount is in, and they have not done so well. So there's been some estimates that they have lost $360 million for the year, for the fiscal year, which is a lot of money. That's several major expensive films. And part of that is the result of a couple of bombs that they've had. And I'm going to link you guys these articles so you can read them on your own. MovieWeb, this is just a little more consumer, and this is, more investment. And I will link another one from, I think, Berkshire Hathaway if you want to dig into like the very, very specific fine points of how that stock might be doing. But Star Trek Beyond earned back $231 million from its $185 million budget. That's a very expensive film to make, $185 million. And it's weird, by the way, whenever I see people talk about movie budgets, they're like, this movie did great with its very low budget of, $15 million. I'm like, $15 million is a staggering sum, considering people can make movies now for a couple of grand, in equipment and do it themselves. It's really staggering to see that like there's movies that still cost so much, and it's hard for me to like know where all of that budget goes. People who know better will know. That $185 million budget has more than just like actor salaries and stuff. There's a huge amount of like CGI. You have to pay all the animators to work. It's a very labor intensive process, I'm sure, but it's still a huge sum. And you see, it got $231 million, and as far as I know, they've greenlit a fourth Star Trek movie. But that's still lower than what they expected. Star Trek Beyond did okay at the box office, but it needed $400 million to break even, which it looks like it may not do because you also have to spend money on advertising. And so that may please a lot of Star Trek fans, but I have also heard from reliable sources and people on the channel that it's really not a very bad Star Trek movie, and it's better than the two J.J. Abrams movies. So that's promising as well. They may be getting the signal from like fan feedback, and they may get a signal from this to do something different with the next movie, or they may can it because they don't think they're going to make their money. But they, Ninja Turtles did not do well, which makes me very happy because it looked like crap and I didn't want to remotely have anything to do with it. It's completely unnecessary to me. They made Ben-Hur, apparently made $11 million domestically on a $100 million budget. That actually makes me a little bit satisfied because I can't imagine why anyone would want to remake Ben-Hur. That was just, it seemed like an incredibly stupid decision. But if I'm looking at some of these reports here about like these movies that have not been successful, the common thread running through the movies that have not been successful is that they are not original. They are sequels, they are remakes, they are adding on to older IP. And the fact that fans are not buying into them is actually a very hopeful signal to me. Even though I think they're buying into these old IPs in other areas, like I don't think the Marvel Cinematic Universe has run out of gas. I think the DC Universe is looking to make a lot of money. These comic book universes, I think, are looking at those as the new cash cow. And why not? Those have 50 plus years of history, of story in them. I think there's a lot of rich things that you can just pull stories out of to make movies. It's really, if you know that people are going to buy superhero movies now, which I don't think studios thought people would 20 or 30 years ago, buy superhero movies to a great extent. Like Superman was successful, and we saw others, but they didn't seem to be very successful. But now they seem to be very successful, which means that's going to be like a gold mine of stories for these studios to really exploit. That could be a good or bad thing depending on your relationship with those movies, I guess. But the fact that these are like, the Ben-Hur remake, no one wanted to watch that. The Star Trek Beyond didn't do so well, which means that people are not super interested in sequels to the J.J. Abrams verse and reboots of older Star Trek as they once were. They're tiring. The audiences are tiring of the rehashing, which is a very, very positive message to me. And like Zoolander 2 did not do well, but those movies which were rather successful and made back a lot of money on a small budget. Those are ones that are more original, that have IPs that are a little bit newer or just not so rehashed. They're not remakes, reboots. They're not redos of stuff that we remember from our childhood. There's some talk in this that this guy thinks that they're going to lose like $500 million. Because they're going to lose money next year, which means that they'd be in a very bad position. $500 million is nothing to sneeze at, and they're coming out with a new like Transformers movie, and what writers and these aren't the only two articles I've read, but what writers tend to say is they're looking to cash in with this new Transformers movie, and I think what we're kind of seeing with the trend, which I'm hoping this is a trend, is that you can't cash in anymore. That you have to actually give audiences something new and interesting for them to look at, or they're not going to buy it. The Transformers movie, the first one, that certainly was very exciting to audiences because they hadn't seen live action Transformers. But I think that the glamour has possibly worn off of that, as it has of these other IPs, which means that the future could be like a return to more original things and a different approach to movie making. And I think part of that will also be helped by the fact that we are getting we're getting a lot more ability to look at to make movies on a very, very limited budget that have a very, very high production value for what you're putting into them. I think I've seen, and I'll probably talk about this on the channel at some point, I've seen some fan films, including like there was a Star Wars fan film about Darth Maul that had production values that were on par with, if not better than, movies that we saw 20 or 30 years ago, for sure, and were made basically in people's spare time. Which means that if the production, the cost to get the production values high goes down and down, that means you have a lot more independents able to make these sort of explosive action movies, possibly in the future, that could really force Hollywood to rethink its strategy of spend a bunch of money on a movie, put a bunch of CGI in it, use an IP that we've seen a million times before, that we already have proven that audiences like, to hedge our bet. Like I've said, that reboots are a hedging of a bet, because it's $200 million to make a movie in some cases. That's a lot of money, and you don't want to commit to it unless you really, really think that you're going to get your money back. And you're not getting your money back from the hedging of the bet, which means Hollywood's going to have to take possibly more risks to interest audiences. That's what I'm hoping anyway. I'll probably be proven wrong next year as, like, you know, they make a triumphant return with Transformers 6 or whatever they're on now. But I'm hoping. I have my hope. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that you have the same hopes as me. And please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget, if you would like to support the channel, my book is linked below. I'm always appreciative of anyone that buys the book and reads it. And if you do read it, please give your fellow consumers a review so they can make a good decision with their dollar too. Have a great one, and I will see you later.